My kids couldn't sleep because the neighbor's baby screamed all night. I knocked to talk. She slammed the door in my face and said, "Get used to it." So I set up speakers facing her wall. The next night, she called the cops crying. But that was just the beginning. We moved into the duplex in Burbank around mid-September. Rent wasn't cheap, but it was the best I could do for me and my two kids. I'm a single dad. Sarah is 9. Ethan just turned 7. The place wasn't perfect. Small kitchen, no central air, thin walls, but it was clean, close to their school, and quiet. At least at first. For the first 2 months, the other unit stayed empty. Quiet mornings. Peaceful nights. I could hear the street noise, sure, but that was normal. Then one Friday afternoon, a beat-up white U-Haul pulled up and I saw her. She was in her 20s, maybe younger. Skinny, tired-looking. She had a baby on her hip, maybe 5 or 6 months old, and a diaper bag that looked like it weighed more than her. Her brother helped unload. I walked over, introduced myself, and offered a hand. She looked at me like I was a parking ticket. "I'm Mike," I said. "Just wanted to say welcome." She just said, "Thanks," and turned away. That night was the first night the baby cried. And by cried, I mean screamed. It started around 11:30 p.m. and went on and off all night. Screaming, then silence, then screaming again. I didn't say anything. I figured moving is hard. Babies cry, it's temporary. But it wasn't temporary. By night 4, Sarah was crying in her bed from exhaustion. Ethan kept asking me if something was wrong with the baby next door. I was surviving on coffee and aspirin. I waited a few more days before knocking. I knocked twice. She opened the door holding the baby. She looked even more tired than the day she moved in. "No hello, no can I help you?" Just silence. I said, as calmly as I could, "Hey, sorry to bother you, but my kids haven't been able to sleep. The crying, it's been every night. Is there anything?" She didn't even let me finish. She rolled her eyes and said, "Get used to it." Then slammed the door in my face. That was it.
No explanation. No apology.
I stood there for a few seconds. Not mad yet, just stunned. But it kept going. Every night. The screaming didn't stop. It got louder. Sometimes it went for 2 or 3 hours straight. My kids were missing the bus. I was showing up to work late, dragging through meetings. I tried playing white noise. Nothing worked. I even put rolled-up towels along the baseboards. Didn't help. I left a note on her door. She crumpled it and tossed it on my porch. So I stopped being polite. I went on Craigslist and bought 2 big floor speakers for $40. Set them up in my bedroom, right against the shared wall. Downloaded a playlist of construction site sounds, jackhammers, forklifts, alarms, the works. At 2:13 a.m., right after the baby started wailing for the 3rd time that night, I turned on the speakers. The pounding and drilling filled the wall. Within 5 minutes, she was banging on the other side. Then she was at my front door, screaming and crying. "What the F **K is your problem? I have a baby." I didn't answer. 20 minutes later, 2 LAPD officers showed up. They were calm, professional. They asked me if I had been playing loud sounds. I told them yes. I showed them the app I'd been using to record sound levels at night. Showed them the timestamps. Played them clips of the baby screaming. I even pulled up emails I'd sent to my landlord, who, of course, never responded. One officer rubbed his eyes and said, "We can't tell people how to parent." The other looked around my house. Saw the kids asleep on the couch. He just said, "Keep it down," and they left. That night, I switched the playlist to whale mating calls. Played them at full blast around 3 a.m. Next morning, she didn't speak to me. Just glared when we passed in the driveway. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. She started parking her car halfway into my spot. Left dirty diapers in the shared trash can. Once, I saw her brother standing outside, just staring at my house. Didn't say anything. Just stood there smoking. Then, my front tire got slashed. 2 days later, it was the rear. I called the police again. Filed a report. But there were no cameras. No proof. That's when I realized I couldn't win this the normal way. She didn't care about decency, or her neighbors, or anyone but herself. So I had to get smarter. I started documenting everything. Every scream, every door slam, every diaper left rotting in the trash. I kept a log with times and dates. I bought a cheap doorbell cam off Amazon and installed it while she was gone. I set up an old phone as a sound recorder in my bedroom. I took pictures of the tire slashes. I even took a picture of her brother just standing there with his cigarette and that blank, angry look. Then I called the landlord. I didn't expect much. He lived in Orange County and barely responded to anything. But I figured if I had enough proof, maybe he'd step in. I emailed him the photos, the videos, the audio clips. I explained everything. How my kids were suffering, how my car had been vandalized, how she slammed the door in my face the one time I tried to talk like an adult. He finally replied, "Unfortunately, there's not much I can do unless there's police involvement or a lease violation." That was his answer. His own property was turning into a war zone, and he wanted no part of it. So I got creative. I knew someone who worked for the city. Not a close friend, more like a friend of a friend, but he owed me a favor. I told him what was going on. He asked for her unit number and full name, which I gave him. A week later, the city showed up. Not police. Not child services. Code enforcement. Turns out she wasn't supposed to have a washing machine hooked up in that unit, and hers was leaking into the foundation. They found other stuff too, exposed wires, broken smoke detectors, mold in the bathroom. And the best part? Her lease had a clause about city violations. The landlord had no choice. He gave her 30 days to fix it all, or leave. She didn't take it well. The night she got the notice, she went into full meltdown mode. I heard her screaming into the phone. Then she started blasting music through the wall. Not music, really just loud bass and static. It went on all night. My kids cried. I didn't sleep, but I didn't play the speakers. I wanted her to dig her own hole. 3 days later, I came home from work and found someone had dumped paint all over my car. Bright pink. Dripping down the windshield, the hood, even a license plate. That's when I called the police again. This time, I gave them everything. The footage, the logs, the emails. I showed them the connection between the eviction notice and the vandalism. They took it more seriously now. Took photos. Made a report. They went next door and spoke to her for over an hour. I don't know what she told them, but the baby was quiet that night. Dead quiet. Too quiet. And that's when I started wondering what else was going on behind that wall. Because after all the noise, after all the rage, now there was nothing. And that silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like something else. 2 nights after the pink paint, I saw a moving truck pull into her driveway. Not a big one like before, just a small rental van, and the same brother helping her again. It was around 10 p.m. I watched from the kitchen window as they loaded stuff fast. Bags, boxes, the crib. The baby was crying again, muffled, but there. That's when I realized something. She was leaving. No notice. No goodbye. Just sneaking out in the dark. I went outside and stood near my car just so she knew I was watching. She kept her head down. Her brother made eye contact once. Just once. It wasn't a glare this time, it was something else. Like a warning. He tapped his cigarette out on my driveway before getting in the van. By 1 a.m., they were gone. I checked with the landlord the next day. She hadn't said a word to him either. Just left.
No final payment.
Nothing cleaned.
I thought that was the end.
For about 2 weeks, it was quiet.
No crying. No screaming.
My kids started sleeping through the night again. I felt like I could finally breathe. I cleaned the yard. Fixed the porch light. Started looking forward to weekends again. Then a letter showed up in the mailbox. No return address. Just my name on the front in sloppy handwriting. Inside was a single piece of paper. One sentence written in blue ink. You think you won because you made more noise. But you don't know what you started.
No signature.
No name. I didn't show it to the kids. I didn't even tell anyone. I just stared at it for a long time and then folded it up and stuck it in the kitchen drawer next to the batteries. I tried to let it go. Maybe she was just bitter. Maybe she was trying to scare me. But then little things started happening. My trash cans were knocked over 3 mornings in a row. A strange car started parking across the street every night, engine off, lights out. Then Ethan came home from school with a torn backpack and a note in his pocket. It just said, "Kids don't sleep forever." That broke me. I pulled him out of school for a day, filed another police report, installed new cameras front, back, side. I even put a baby monitor up to hear outside my own windows. I wasn't going to let this touch my kids. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. She was gone. But not done. And now I had to figure out how far she was willing to go. I took the letter to the police, along with the note Ethan found in his backpack. The officer I spoke to this time was younger, maybe early 30s, and actually seemed to listen. He read the notes twice, looked through the camera footage I'd downloaded onto a USB, then leaned back in his chair and said, "Honestly, we can't prove she sent any of this. But I'd keep documenting everything. And keep those cameras running." That's all they could do. I bought 2 more cameras that night. By now I wasn't sleeping well. Every creak in the house made me sit up. I kept the monitor by my bed, the screen glowing softly through the night. The kids had no idea what was really going on. I told them the cameras were just for safety in case of animals or something dumb like that. A week passed. No car. No new letters. Nothing strange. Then one afternoon, I came home from work and found my front door unlocked. Nothing was stolen. Nothing moved. But I know I locked that door. I checked the footage. Everything from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. was just gone. A black gap. Like someone had unplugged the power briefly and reconnected it. I checked the camera plugs. All secure. All working fine now. I asked the landlord if he'd had anyone come by for maintenance. He said no. Then that same night, I heard something. Not crying. Not yelling. It was a recording. Low at first, but clear. It was a baby crying. The same sound I'd heard through the wall for weeks. But it wasn't coming from a wall. It was coming from outside. I opened the back door and stood there, frozen. Someone had placed a small Bluetooth speaker by the fence, just sitting there in the dirt, playing the sound of a crying baby on loop. It was past midnight. I ran out, kicked the speaker into pieces, and grabbed the SIM card from inside before dumping the rest in the trash. This was her. It had to be. But why now? Why keep going? She was gone. She had already moved. Unless she hadn't. I went back through some of the security footage, hour by hour, day by day. That's when I caught it, 2 nights earlier, around 2:40 a.m., someone walking down the alley behind the duplex. Hoodie up. Stopped near the backyard, crouched, then left. Couldn't see the face. But I knew it wasn't random. I started staying up later. Sleeping less. Double-checking every lock twice. The stress started catching up. I snapped at Sarah when she spilled juice on the carpet. I didn't recognize myself for a second. She just looked up at me, scared, and whispered, "Is she coming back?" I didn't answer, because the truth is I wasn't sure she ever left. 3 days after the speaker incident, Ethan came into my room around 5 a.m., holding his blanket and whispering that someone was in the backyard. I sat up, heart pounding. He said he heard footsteps by his window. I grabbed the bat from under my bed and went outside barefoot. The grass was wet with dew, but there were footprints, fresh, clear, and not mine. They led from the side gate to the back fence. I followed them with a flashlight until they stopped by the tree line. Then I saw it. A pacifier. One of those blue ones with the rubber animal face attached. It was hanging from a branch. Just swinging. I took it down and bagged it in a Ziploc. I didn't even know why anymore. The police couldn't do much. The cameras didn't catch a clear face. But I wanted proof for myself. Proof I wasn't losing my mind. Later that day, I called my cousin Brent. He used to work in private security. Big guy.
No nonsense.
I hadn't talked to him in a while, but I told him everything. Every single thing. He didn't laugh. He didn't say I was paranoid. He just said, "You want me to come stay a few nights?" I said yes. Brent showed up the next evening with a duffel bag and a Glock in a locked case. Legally owned, registered, everything by the book. He set up in the living room with a sleeping bag and kept his boots on while he slept. That first night, nothing happened. The second night, around 3:10 a.m., Brent shook me awake. "There's someone at the gate." I followed him out silently. He already had the lights off inside, and the back porch light disabled. We moved to the kitchen window and peeked out. There was a woman standing just beyond the motion light. She wasn't moving. Just standing there with a hood over her head, arms folded. The light flickered as she shifted slightly, and I caught a glimpse of her face. It was her, Rachel, but she didn't look like she had before. She was thinner.
Gaunt.
Her eyes looked sunken. She stared directly at the window, like she knew we were watching. Then she held up something in her hand. It was one of Sarah's dolls. Brent moved toward the back door, but by the time we got outside, she was gone.
Just gone.
We called the police. They came, looked around, took the report, but again, no footage.
She was always just outside the range, always knowing just how to slip by.
The cops told us to consider filing a restraining order. I tried.
I really did.
But I couldn't find her.
No forwarding address. No listed job.
No record of her in the system under the name I had. Even her last rental paperwork used a P.O. box. My lawyer friend said, it's like she never existed on paper. And that's when it hit me. I didn't know her real name. I never saw ID. Never got a last name. The lease listed her as Rachel M., but nothing more. And I realized something even worse. If I couldn't find her, I couldn't stop her. And if I couldn't stop her, I couldn't protect my kids. Not forever. I kept Sarah and Ethan home the next day.
Called in sick to work.
I told them it was just to have a rest day, but I spent the whole time checking locks, rewatching footage, pacing the hallway. Brent stayed sharp, barely said a word unless he had to. By evening, my nerves were shot.
Talking.
Not yelling. Just talking, quiet, private things. From weeks ago. "Sarah, if she doesn't stop, I don't know what we're gonna do." Then another clip. "Maybe we should move." "I don't want to, but if this keeps up," then static. Then her voice. "You should have just stayed out of it." I dropped the phone. Brent picked it up, replayed it, looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. "How the hell did she record that?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. I checked every room that night. Every outlet. Every vent. I tore through the kids' rooms after they fell asleep. Brent, and I even opened up parts of the wall in my bedroom, looking for anything, a mic, a bug, a camera. Nothing. The next morning, I went to the police station in person with a voicemail. They ran a trace. Came back with nothing. Disposable phone. No location data. The officer, same younger guy from before, leaned forward and said, "Look, this is turning into harassment. But unless she threatens you directly or enters your home, we can't arrest her. You need to talk to a lawyer. Or move."
Move. Just like that.
Like I was the one who had done something wrong. When I got home, Brent was outside. Said someone had walked past the house twice that afternoon and slowed down both times. He took a picture. The figure had a scarf over their mouth and a hoodie up, but they were holding something in their right hand. A stuffed rabbit. Ethan's. The one he'd lost at school 2 months ago. I called the school that day, back when he lost it. They said it was never turned in. So, how did she have it? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen with every light off, just waiting, holding a flashlight in one hand and Brent's spare taser in the other. The baby monitor picked up static for an hour straight around 2 a.m., then went silent. Then my front door creaked. Not opened, just creaked. Like pressure, not from a person but from weight. I stood and walked to it, slowly, quietly, and turned the knob fast. Nothing was there, but the door frame had something stuck to it. A small piece of paper, taped right at eye level. All it said was, "They never stopped crying. Not even when I held them under." I dropped the flashlight. I moved out 2 weeks later. Left most of our things behind. Just packed what fit in the car and drove until the kids fell asleep. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear crying through the walls, even when there's nothing there. And sometimes I wonder, If I had just stayed quiet, if I hadn't knocked on her door that day, would she have still found a way in?